Kevin Ellis pulled the trigger, but Tracey Grist killed Matthew Restelli. The question isn't whether it was murder. The question is whether Tracey is tied to that murder. Under the law, a person is guilty of a crime if she intentionally helps bring it about, if she solicits it, if she encourages it, if she helps it to happen. She doesn't have to pull the trigger to be a murderer. So again, Kevin shot, but Tracey is a murderer. Fueled by her hate for Matthew, inspired by her interest in true crime, Tracey planned and executed a knockoff of the Donna Adelson conspiracy. After all, as Tracey herself put it, sometimes you have to color outside the lines. Now, in this conspiracy, Kate and her kids were the motive, Kevin was the means, and Tracey was the mastermind, the manipulator. Let's briefly address each of those three. Start with the motive. Kate was unhappy in her marriage. She viewed it as loveless. She had already moved on to other men. She wanted a divorce and custody of her kids. But when she ran away to Utah, a divorce attorney told her it wouldn't be so easy. As she put it in a text to her friend, she felt both hopeless and fucked. Tracey too gained a motive by this turn of events. Remember what Matt texted her after she convinced Kate to skip town on him. You infected Kate with the need to leave California. I will not forget your involvement in this. Enjoy your short time with them. You will not be welcome in our house again. If you don't text me the address where his children were, I will be calling the sheriff for kidnapping. Tracey not only hated Matt, but feared that if he remained in the picture, she would lose at least some level of access to her daughter and her grandchildren. Everyone understood that this was the final straw. So Tracey did what a lawyer could not. She copied an idea, a way out of the marriage with no California court, no sheriff, no shared custody, and no loose ends. It would kill Matthew. The means. Kevin's role in Tracey's plan was to shoot Matthew. He shot Matthew 7 times. 3 times in the back. Mere seconds after Matthew had come into the home, an expected and invited guest. Kevin and Tracey then waited 8 minutes after the shooting before calling 911. Time sufficient to make sure that Matthew was truly dead, time to plant the knife, time to stage the scene. During those 8 minutes, no one tried to give Matthew any life-saving aid. During those 8 minutes, Kevin said to be careful because Matthew might still be moving or kicking. And during those 8 minutes, as I said, the knife was planted. That gun used to kill Matthew, Tracey's. The knife planted in Matthew's hand, Tracey's. The manipulation. Tracey was the mastermind of this murder. She was at the gravitational center of this entire family. She was the one who got each and every family member to carry out their needed part, and certainly some of them did so unwittingly as to what Tracey's ultimate goal was. She was the connection between Kate and Kevin. You heard they didn't really have much of a relationship before Kate fled with the children to Utah. She was literally the voice in Kate's ear, telling Kate what to say when Kate was speaking on the phone to Diane, Matthew's mother. She dictated to Kate what Kate should say or text to Matthew as Kate was luring him to Utah and inside the home. And Tracey was metaphorically the voice on Kate's shoulder as she convinced her that this was the way out. She manipulated Kevin. She preyed on his protective instincts for Kate, but more importantly, his instincts for those 2 children. She pressured him into ambushing, shooting, and killing Matthew. So she manipulated Rachel to get Rory and Jake out of the house so they wouldn't be witnesses. She manipulated Rachel to be the lookout, feed updates as Matt drove to Utah. Remember the messages Rachel sent both Kevin and Tracey just a few minutes before the murder? forum, Find My. She was also the one who had Rachel tell Tim he wouldn't be needed that night. Why not? Because the plan Tim knew about, just to be the peacemaker, to be a presence during a conversation, that had changed. Tim wouldn't be needed to keep the peace because Tracey didn't need him to keep the peace. She didn't want him to keep the peace. She intended for Kevin to shoot Matthew, and the fewer witnesses, the better. And Tracey worked with Tara Lynn to help plant a false story of reconciliation in their text messages, presumably for the police to find. You saw Kate testify. She may have wanted Matthew out of the picture. But we can be real. We can use our common sense. It was obvious that Kate was not capable of planning or carrying out this murdering conspiracy by herself. You heard Kevin's word. Whose idea was this? Tracey's idea. At the beginning of this trial, my colleague asked you to follow the evidence. Not what he said, not what opposing counsel said, not what I say, but what the evidence says. He asked you to consider several questions as you sat throughout this trial. Did Tracey Grist cause the death of Matthew Restelli? Did Tracey agree with Kathryn and or Kevin to kill Matthew? Did Tracey help plant the knife or plant the knife? In a moment, we will review the evidence together to see what answers it gives us to these questions. But first, I want to review just a few of the instructions Judge Griffin just gave you, because the law he gave you will help you determine which narrative is letting the facts speak for themselves, and which narrative is distorting the facts to fit a story that does not reflect the reality of what happened. Jury instruction 10 is the reasonable doubt instruction. I want to call your attention to just a few passages in each of these instructions. There are very few things in this world that we know with absolute certainty. And in criminal cases, the law does not require proof that overcomes every possible doubt. You just need to be firmly convinced. And if I say anything in this closing argument that makes it seem I'm undercutting that, I'm not. If I say anything, a slip of a tongue that makes it seem like I'm shifting the burden to the defendant, I am not. She has no burden. The state has the burden. But be clear on what the burden is. You only have to be firmly convinced, not beyond the shadow of a doubt or some other standard. What is evidence? Evidence includes what the witnesses said while testifying under oath, and any exhibits admitted into evidence, as noted. The lawyer's statements, the arguments, those are not evidence. But this is important. This is what I want to draw your attention to. You may draw all reasonable inferences from that evidence. And there are many reasonable inferences for you to draw in this case. You may ask, is some evidence better than other evidence? Facts may be proved by direct evidence or circumstantial evidence. The law does not treat any one type of evidence better than the other. It's for you to apply your judgment and common sense on how you wish to weigh the evidence. Similarly, how do you decide if a witness is credible? I obviously couldn't put the entire instruction on here, but the key passages. Use your judgment and common sense. You may consider anything that you think is important in weighing the credibility of witnesses. And this is key. You may believe all, part, or none of a witness's testimony. With at least 2 witnesses, there are reasons to believe only parts of what they told you. We'll come back to that. Now, what must be proven? Now, this is just a summary. When we get to it, when you get to the deliberation and later in the argument we discuss it, use the actual instructions. This is just a summary to help us for the moment. I want to call your attention to the 4 different charges. One of them, domestic violence in the presence of a child, there's 2 counts for each of the 2 children. But you'll notice that murder, as a party to the offense, did Tracey Grist cause the death of Matthew? Obstruction, as a party to the offense, did Tracey plant the knife or make an untruthful statement to police or 911? Domestic violence in the presence of a child, as a party to the offense, did Tracey Grist commit the murder in the presence of the children? And then conspiracy is slightly different. Tracey Grist, intending that the crime be performed, agreed with 1 or more persons to engage or cause the performance. 3 of these charges have that language as a party to the offense. And that's important to look at for a moment. What does that mean? How can you be a party to the offense? If she has the mental state required for the offense, that's something the instruction will tell you a little bit more about in a moment. If she directly commits it, or if she solicits it, or requests it, or commands it, or encourages it, or intentionally aids it, she's just as guilty as the person who actually did it. So if she solicited, requested, commanded, encouraged, or aided Kevin in shooting Matthew, she's guilty of murder. The same for the obstruction, and the same for the domestic violence in the presence of a child. Now, with this law in mind, I want to review the facts together with you. And in these facts, we will see, as surely as the day is long, that Tracey Grist is not just a party to the offense, but the key party to the offenses of murder and obstruction and conspiracy and domestic violence in the presence of a child. Now, we admitted a lot of exhibits in this case, a substantial amount. And this is just the documentary evidence, not to mention the videos, not to mention the audio. I'm going to thank you in advance for your patience as we go through some of that. We don't have time to go through all of that. You can choose in your deliberations to go through all of it. I want to highlight the key points for you. So let's turn to the evidence. We begin with a more in-depth look at the development of the motive and origins of this conspiracy. Now, as you've heard, Matthew and Kate married in 2016, and they lived in California. They certainly had their issues. It was called a toxic relationship during trial. Regardless, by early 2024, that relationship was strained. Kate was unhappy. She viewed it as loveless. She had already had an affair, or as she called it, stepping out on the marriage. And that was a point of conflict between her and Matthew. You saw the evidence. In January 2024, Kate confided to her mother that she wanted out of the marriage. They had been fighting so much. I want out. By May, texts between Kate and Tracey again reflect continued frustration and unhappiness. I hate my life. Hate that I have kids with Matt. This is so bad. I hate him so much. Ultimately, Kate was unhappy enough to separate from Matthew, essentially disappearing without warning on June 20th, 2024. She took their 2 young children to live at her mother's house, Tracey, in American Fork, Utah, driving the rental car that Tracey paid for and arranged for her to have. After Kate came to Utah, she and the Grist family learned that separating from Matthew and getting custody of the children wouldn't be very clear-cut. It would be very difficult. The biggest problem was that California still had legal jurisdiction over the children and the marriage. You heard Kate's recorded conversation with the lawyer that she shared with the family, where she learned the reality of their situation. As Kate summarized to her friend, honestly, I'm fucked. Just dumb California law. I just feel hopeless. So the evidence is clear about the development of Kate's motive. But in the evidence, we can also see the development of Tracey's motive and thoughts in parallel to Kate. In January, when Kate confided to her mother that she wanted out of the marriage that they'd been fighting, how did Tracey respond? She called Matt. She threatened him, even though, as she puts it, she was just watering down her words. And then Kate said, "Don't call him." And she replied that she wouldn't. "I'll just drive 9 hours and strangle him." Fuck him. By May, Kate had again confided that she hates her life. This was May 22nd. And the next day, Tracey searches the web for mountain lion. Searches the web for this. What scent attracts mountain lions to human? Tracey says, this is just a joke. I don't know about you. I've never had Google laugh at one of my searches before. This was for her and her alone. That same day, Tracey flew to California for a short visit to attend her friend Amy's celebration of life. She returned home on May 30th, and then shortly thereafter, she starts days of texts and searches that aren't just coincidence, but rather show what Tracey thinks of Matthew and what's on her mind at this point in time. So on June 4th, around 6:02 p.m., Tracey reaches out to her daughter, Tara Lynn. Can you talk? So mad at Matt. So mad. The next morning, we have this exchange where Kate calls Matt a piece of shit because of that issue with the camper trailer. And Tracey says, he's lying. And then, a little bit later that day, tells Rachel, Matt made it so I want to kill him. When Katie asked about whatever I had said about her being the camper too much, which I never said anything, he straight up lied. I'm gonna kill him. And then by the evening of June 6th, and the next morning, June 7th, she searches more. She searches more about the Donna Adelson murder conspiracy. She searches Katie Magbanwa pictures, Katie Magbanwa, Kathryn Magbanwa attorney, Katie Magbanwa's second trial defense charts. You may remember that Katie was the middleman in the Donna Adelson conspiracy to murder her son-in-law. She also searches, how old were Dan Markle's kids when Dan was killed? Dan was Donna's son-in-law, who she murdered through the use of a hitman. Or we could use the defense's statements from opening, where he said, it's just a guy who got murdered by another guy. It was a messy deal. Also a conspiracy. What these texts, internet searches, and verbal conversations show is that Tracey returned again and again over time to her contempt for Matthew and the idea of killing him. Look, we need to be clear about at least one thing here. Offhanded comments and Google searches alone do not prove guilt. Back in January, the murder wasn't in play yet. But when you see the comments continue, when you see the comments followed by research, the research followed by planning, the planning followed by an execution of the plan followed by a cover-up, it tells you what was on her mind, and you know exactly what her intent was. You heard Tracey say it herself. I searched what was on my mind. And Matthew's death was on her mind. Moreover, Tracey's feelings influenced the entire family. Let's take one example. From June 16th. This is where Tara Lynn and Rachel have a conversation. Tara Lynn, referring to her husband, asking Rachel, he wants to know if you shot your .380 yet. Rachel says, no. Unfortunately, kids make it hard to get out and go shooting. Ha ha. We need to coordinate with Mom and take it out before any chance of Matt coming. LOL. There's a phrase called kidding on the square. I don't know if you've heard it before. It's a communication style where it allows someone to convey a sincere opinion under the guise of humor. It can give you plausible deniability. I was just kidding. I was just joking about what I said. But what such joking does, when it's repeated time and time again, is to normalize violence. It desensitized the family to the idea of killing Matt. It dehumanized Matthew that they routinely joked about killing him. It takes a lot to kill another person. Normalizing, desensitizing, dehumanizing, good first steps to get there. Some of it surely started as a joke. That's got to be the truth. That common sense tells you that. It turns out to be a lot less funny when a few minutes later someone turns up dead. With this understanding of Tracey's mindset towards Matthew, consider what happened once it was decided that Kate would leave Matthew and come to Utah. So on June 16th, the arrangements were made for Kate to come to Utah. Tracey got her on the credit card, they made the bedroom plan, etc., etc. At nearly exactly the same time, Tracey makes the following search. Utah, shoot, break-in. She said, now autocorrect must have spelt it wrongly. Use your common sense. Autocorrect doesn't fill in misspellings. This was an intentional search by Tracey. And then a few hours later, she searches how to file for a divorce, how to establish Utah residency. On the 20th, Kate then came to Utah. And as a result of her coming to Utah, we have the final text conversations between Matthew and Tracey. The ones where Matt texted Tracey after she helped Kate skip town on him. These statements. The ones where he says that you infected Kate. The one where he says, enjoy your short time with them. The one where he threatens to call the sheriff for kidnapping. And we can see as a result of this exchange exactly how Tracey became concerned about what had happened, about what she had done, about the legal implications of bringing Kate and the children to Utah. For what we will see is not a temporary breather, but a permanent break. Because the next morning, on June 22nd, she makes 16 searches related to child custody, the legal implications, and parental kidnapping. Now, what did Tracey learn from all these web searches? We can infer, remember the instructions, you can make reasonable inferences from the evidence, that she learned exactly what the lawyer told Kate on July 11th. California still had jurisdiction. Jurisdiction for the divorce, jurisdiction for child custody, and there was no way Kate was going to get sole custody of the kids in Utah. And now, at this point, after that, Kate had very real reason to fear losing at least some access to her daughter and her grandchildren. There was the lawyer call on July 11th at 3:29 p.m. Lasted approximately 31 minutes. What did Tracey search at 4:39 p.m.? When was Donna Adelson arrested? So approximately 40 minutes after the lawyer call ended, Tracey is researching how long it took Donna Adelson to be arrested for getting rid of her inconvenient son-in-law by murdering him during a custody dispute. Is it a coincidence? If you still have any lingering doubt that Tracey didn't know exactly what was going on with the lawyer or wasn't controlling absolutely everything and everyone in this family, remember her conversation with Tara Lynn from before the lawyer meeting. Tara, call Kate. Help her with what to say to the lawyer. She's happy about not going back, and she needs to take legal steps now. School starts soonish, July 1st. Does this sound temporary to you? Tracey knows Kate isn't going back, even if she testified otherwise. She directs both Tara and Kate on what to do. And let's be real, kids don't need to be registered for school in Utah if they're going home to California. What else did Tracey say? The next day, I'll listen to the lawyer call and report. So what do we know? We know in Tracey's own words that she had contempt for Matt, hated Matt, disliked Matt. Use your adjective of choice. We know in her own words that she stewed over his supposed lies. We know in her own words that she repeatedly joked. She discussed killing him, harming him. We know in her own words that she was well acquainted with murder conspiracies. We know in her own words that she was researching about shooting intruders. We know in her own words, after Matthew threatened to call the sheriff over kidnapping, that she was concerned about parental kidnapping and the legal implications. And we know the lawyer told the family that this wasn't a legal battle they were going to win. Was there an initial plan for this family, for Kate, to pursue a divorce? Yes, that was the initial plan. But by this point, by July 11th, the backup plan took priority for Tracey, Kate, and Kevin. A way out. But that way out was to get Matthew out of the picture permanently. I want to remind you of one more thing on this point before we move on. Kate testified that the conspiracy first came together about a week to a week and a half after she got to Utah on the 20th. You should believe Kate to the extent you can corroborate Kate. We can corroborate this point at least. The Tara Kate messages were July 11th, a little bit more than a week and a half. What do we have here? On June 21st, Tracey told Kevin about the sheriff and the kidnapping issue, forwarded the message, and how did Kevin respond? How about no? They're not worried about Kevin. Sorry, they're not worried about Matt. And on the 26th, Kate texts Kevin, what day are you coming back? Wondering for Olaf, nickname for Matt. If I have to rush back, I can make that happen. June 29th, that week to week and a half. What did Tracey tell her sister and her brother? I want him to show up. he still thinks it's only for another week. And of course she wanted him to show up. You can't remove Matt from the equation if he's not there. In the end, whatever the exact moment was that the plan came together, whatever the exact moment the agreement was made, after the afternoon of July 11th, the die were cast. The loose strands of Tracey's ill will towards Matt, the lingering thoughts of harming him, the inspiration from another murder case, were woven together in that final day and a half into a conspiracy that culminated when Kevin shot Matthew. And if you believe at any point in time, whether it was an hour, a day, or a month before the murder, that there was an agreement, that is conspiracy, and Tracey is guilty of the conspiracy and the murder. Now, to be sure, this was a poorly executed conspiracy, with an even worse cover-up, what the defense called the messiest conspiracy. But a messy conspiracy is a conspiracy nonetheless. So now we are going to move to the execution of the conspiracy and its unraveling. The evidence of it, at least in retrospect, can be broken down into 4 phases. And so that's how I'll break it down for you today. They had to lure Matthew to Utah. They had to funnel him or get him inside Tracey's home. They had to ambush him and cover it up. So phase 1, luring Matt to Utah. We've already acknowledged this. For this to work, Matt has to come to Utah. But we also know Matt doesn't want to drive out to Utah. Kate had come to Utah under that guise of the temporary breather. Matt wanted Kate and the kids to come home to California and tried to assist Kate in coming without him traveling too. Matt, as you can see in these exhibits, this is what this is talking about, had arranged for the rental car and given her $600 so she could rent the car and drive back to California. So this was on the 11th that Matt had actually taken these steps, for Kate to come to him and not vice versa. But then Kate and Tracey worked together to create excuses as to why Kate couldn't drive to California and Matt had to come to Utah. They came up with at least 2 ruses that we know about, the sprained ankle ruse and the can't rent the car ruse, right? And so you can see on here the development, or not necessarily the development, but the evidence of the spraining of the ankle ruse. There's a discussion about the car rental and what does mama say? Plus, you're gonna sprain that ankle. And you saw in evidence, and you can review more fully if you wish, the entire text exchange talking about this supposed sprained ankle, about how they're going to go to the DI and get crutches, and so on and so forth. And then, again, later on, the can't drive with that angle comment. And further, the excuse of not being able to do it because of the out-of-state driver's license and credit card versus debit card issue. Throughout these messages, you can see that Tracey is in control of this. Not Kate. Tracey is directing this show. At Tracey's direction, not only did Kate convince Matt to drive to Utah, but she convinced him to drive the truck, one with the air tag in it. You heard a phone call in which Matt expressed concern about the truck breaking down and wanting to borrow the car. But Kate was insistent he had to drive the truck. Come back to that in a sec. That was Exhibit 13. It's around 10 minutes long, so I won't play the entire thing right now. But there's several quotes in there. One of them was, "You can't just roll the dice with the truck." Several times that Kate comes back and back, urging Matt to take the truck. And you know why, because the air tag that had been hidden inside the truck, in the bin, under the pile of trash. One Matthew didn't know was there, partially because of the trash, and partially because he had the Android phone and wouldn't see it. Now, Tracey, Kevin, Rachel, and Tara Lynn, unlike Matt, could and did track the air tag, including when Matthew came to Utah. We'll just go over a few examples. Right? Okay, so here is Tara Lynn telling Kate to hide the air tag in the truck. And we see the group message that was created between Tracey, Kate, Tara Lynn, and Rachel, where they're all tracking Matthew. Comments are made during this discussion. But you might break down the desert. Ha 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 ha. At least we can watch it. Well, watch it because they can track it. And that was Tara Lynn saying that. Rachel responds, at least we'll be able to track the truck as long as the air tag stays there. We have elsewhere, a few days later, Kevin tracking Matt, telling Kate, hey, the tag is still active. And here's a screenshot of his current location. Even Kelly, Tracey's sister, knows that she's tracking Matt. Have you been getting hits from the air tag in the truck? You can infer Tracey told her about it. Despite Kate convincing Matt to drive to Utah in this trackable truck, there was another problem. Matt was reluctant to come inside the house. There was a few reasons for this. One, he didn't want to turn off the truck because of the whole starter issue and the concern of would it turn back on. But the evidence also shows it was just because of what his purpose was. He just wanted to pick up the kids, get his little family, get him in the truck, and go home to California. We turn the volume, it looks like it may not have been turned up.
Yeah, what's going on?
Good, how are you?
Pretty good, what's going on?
I just called to see how your drive is going.
I'm just passing that abandoned water park.
Oh, fun. Cool.
Yeah, I just like right now I'm looking at it.
Yeah. My mom said if you're too tired, when you get here that you can always sleep here. She said she'll keep her distance. She'll actually be asleep.
It's not like that. I'm just not gonna talk, that's all.
Okay. Or if we want, we can get a hotel. She said she'll give us $100 towards it.
No, it's not like that. I just wanna see my baby, see you. I brought my pillow and everything else.
Right.
So, I'm really worried about it. So, well, but what do you want to do?
I want you to be comfortable.
I will be, I just become
Okay.
once I have my family.
Okay, well, good.
All I
Okay,
want.
awesome.
Yeah. So, cool. I'll just keep
Awesome.
trucking along here.
The morning started with these text messages. Good morning, getting up and getting moving. Exciting for today, is what Kate told him. He responds, I'm over the moon. Can't wait to hug and kiss you all. You have other phone calls in the record that you can listen to from the morning. That last phone call you just heard was at 2:20 afternoon. There's another one around 8:15 p.m. You can listen to all of them if you want. You'll notice Matt's not agitated. Matt's excited about seeing his family, seeing his baby, going home. Completely different than the testimony you heard from Tracey, that he was agitated, and that explains what happened. Not what explains what happened. Anyways, Matthew didn't want to go in Tracey's home. He didn't want that confrontation. He didn't want to turn off the car as we discussed. He just wanted to load quickly and go home. The starter was an issue, but Matt also knew what the state of his relationship was with Tracey. He knew they didn't get along. He knew they each knew what the other thought of the other. So, we have these messages that clearly show how he feels. We've seen the messages from Tracey that clearly shows how she feels. Despite this, Kate repeatedly reassured Matt throughout the drive. She gave him the gate code. She told him the doors were unlocked. She put that cardboard out. She said she just heard Tracey would be asleep. One of the phone calls, she told him, just come right on in. The door is always unlocked. And Tracey was actually involved in these reassurances. We see that in the evidence. Here's just one example of it. Tell Matt, I'll stay away, and I'll be as sweet as can be. Tracey, who had for months belittled Matthew, for months threatened to kill him in these so-called jokes, made a threat to him over the phone, said fuck him, belittled him, said he didn't have the balls to do anything. Tracey, who had gotten Kate away from Matthew, is now encouraging Matthew to come inside the home without knocking, without hesitation. What's common sense tell you about that? Meanwhile, when this is all happening, the family is monitoring the AirTag. Now, you heard Rachel testify that she watched it at least 5 times that day. Tara Lynn and Rachel knew about it. Here is Rachel texting Tara Lynn a screenshot of Matt's location, to which Tara Lynn replies with an expletive, that's pretty far up there. We know Tracey was doing the same. Here's the text from Tracey to Kate with that same Apple AirTag that was being used to track him. Now, July 12th was a hive of activity amongst the family as preparations were made for his arrival. Throughout the day of the shooting, the family exchanged phone calls and messages, many of which discussed Matt. We have reconstructed, for this presentation, a timeline sourced entirely from the evidence in the trial of what all these people were doing on July 12th before Matthew's arrival. Now, I'm going to give you a note up front. This is a demonstrative. This has not been admitted into evidence. You don't get it during deliberations. So feel free to take any notes that you would like from this to cross-check those exhibits on what stands out to you. Now we have a little key. There's persons involved. Matt will be highlighted in this light purple color, Kate in yellow, Tracey in red, Tara Lynn in green, Rachel in blue, Kevin in orange. Aurora, Jake, and Tim don't appear very frequently, so they're just still on white. You'll understand it. And then the communication types also get colored. Text messages in black, phone calls in purple, Facebook Messenger, whether that be a text or a call, is in blue, and web searches are in green. At the top, you'll see the time, you'll see the sender, you'll see the receiver, you'll see the message or a description of what it was, you'll see the duration or an indication that it was a text message, and you'll see a note to the exhibit number, because like I said, these are pulled from the exhibits. Feel free to refer to them during deliberations, should you so choose. So it starts out, good morning, Exhibit 8. We've already been over that text exchange. And then Tracey and Kate have this discussion about the rental car. Darn that rental place for not taking a debit card. Kate, I have to be more upset. Then they have a continued discussion about that. And then what was found on Kate's device, the audio recording that occurred sometime between 7:57 and 8:04. The recording where she goes up to Kevin, saying she needs to go make her story more believable or plausible, and that the kids know that she is upstairs. Kate then has a phone call with Tracey, then a phone call with Matt, and then we have some back and forth phone calls. Kate Tracey, Kate Matt, Tracey Tara Lynn Kate, Kate Tara Lynn. At this point we have 3 phone calls between Kate and Matthew where she is convincing him to come out to Utah. The first one, that's the one where you can't roll the dice you heard the segment of. Go back and listen to the entire thing. The second one, Matt says he's not going to borrow a car. And by the third one, Matt says that he got the permit, he's going to be able to drive the truck out. And then right after that, Kate texts Tracey. He's going to drive out. So the plan worked. Matt's coming to Utah. And then what happens? Kate calls Tara Lynn. Tara Lynn calls Rachel. Rachel texts Tracey. Tara Lynn calls Rachel. Tracey texts Kate. I'll call you. Then Tracey, a little bit later, does call Tracey. Have you ever seen the third Lord of the Rings movie, Return of the King? Or is that one scene where they light the beacon tower and it just goes down the chain and each one gets lit in a row? That is exactly what's happening here. At least on this day, everyone in the family that's involved in these conversations knows what is going on with Kate and Matthew. And then we have that text message we already looked at where Tracey shows the AirTag location. And then we have a phone call between Matt and Kate where Kate confirms that Matthew is coming inside.
Yeah, probably just pull right up in front of the house,
Yeah, I want to slow it up. How long are you going to take? Like 15 minutes to load up?
Yeah, not long at all.
Yeah, I'm not trying to rush you. I just don't
No.
want to risk the truck. That's all,
No, I get it.
Yeah.
You gonna come inside? Are you gonna come inside and help me load up?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. The front door is always unlocked, okay?
So that entire call is about 11 minutes, Exhibit 16. There's more to it. Those are some highlights. Then we get to lunchtime. We again have a flurry of calls back and forth. Or I guess I should say messages. Some of these are Facebook, some of these are phone calls, some of these are written communications. We see that Rachel sends the image of Matthew's AirTag. Carolyn, that's where she says that's pretty far up there. And then again, we have some flurry of overlapping phone calls and messages between Kate and Tracey and Rachel and Tara Lynn. And then right at the end of this back and forth, you'll see at 12:58 there's a phone call between Tracey and Kate while on the phone with Rachel. We're not sure if that's a three-way or if Rachel's put on hold at this point. And then there's a call between Rachel and Tara Lynn, and then a messenger between Tara Lynn and Rachel. But then what do we see? Tracey and Tara Lynn have a phone call that lasts 3 hours and 56 minutes. Then they have a phone call through the Facebook app for 30 minutes and 30 seconds. And then immediately after that, over 30 minutes of communication, they have a text exchange. And I submit to you that this text exchange is completely out of place to the tenor of everything else. In this text message, they continue going on about how happy they are that Kate is going back. I was calling to let you know that Matt is headed out. She already knew by that point. To pick up Katie and the kiddos. Your phone is kind of annoying because I came and have a normal conversation with you. She's going to try to make it work and be a positive experience. I told her I'm a little nervous. Heart emoji to Tracey's first message. I know he's trying, but I'm nervous and trepidation for sure. But I support her completely. I really need you to support her because she is on the fence. And she needs our love and support to do so for the kiddos. Tracey continues, my only prayer today is he's peaceful and continues to be peaceful. With her, nachos, but she corrects it. Sorry, the month to months, so I'll read it corrected. With her, not just on the drive back from California, but also in the months to come, so not just. And then Tara Lynn responds, from what Kate was telling me, it sounds like he's gotten sober and is really trying. I'm still worried about his temper. I'm still hoping that he's really had a change of heart in the last couple weeks. I'll definitely try to be supportive. It does make me nervous, though, because he says one thing and then he just does another. Submitting to throughout all of this, it's not Matt who said one thing and did another. Tracey, I love you. Tara Lynn, I know that them working this out would be the best for everybody, and I will support her no matter what. Sorry my reception is so crappy. I would have loved to have this conversation with you on the phone. Just on the phone for nearly 35 minutes. Tracey, I love you, and all I care about is that she is happy, and that the kids are happy, and I feel like her giving this another chance, especially after she came out for some time to think. It continues. The hardest part, they continue this another page or two. Tracey discussed about how she would just stay out of the way unless Matt wants to come in and say hi. I'll give them space. I feel like Matt is not happy with me. And I'll let Katie stay with us. So I'll be fine. As time goes on, I'll be fine. Probably for the best, and so on and so on. Discussion of marriage counseling. The excitement in seeing his family will be just all he's thinking about. Same. Oh gosh, don't say that, Tracey says. If he stews on the whole drive, that would not be good. I pray to God he's only excited to hug those babies. 100%, Tracey says to that. Tracey continues, hey there, I need to focus, so I love you, and I'll talk to you later. And I do not like that. Your phone is ridiculous right now. But I can't imagine how you might be feeling about that dang phone. You probably want to throw it across the room. Tara Lynn, I know, I feel like you only want to see the good side of things sometimes. And I hope that you're right about that things go well. For real. I'll let you work. But thank you for taking the time to text with me. I feel so isolated with my reception being so expletive. We know she's free to use expletives in so many other communications. She edited this one for some reason. Yet one more reason to show this is a ruse, this is planted. Does anyone really believe this? This is completely incredulous. Here's another one that we know that they knew that Kate wasn't going back. Telling everyone not to engage with Matt. There won't be us after this deceptive mood. Great. That's kind of the plan, dude. That's kind of the plan, dude. There won't be us after this. Any event, after that additional ruse, Tracey and Kevin, quick phone call, they're meeting for sushi. Tracey immediately starts planting messages with Kate. What happened since the previous day? Why is she excited now about this? Well, they're excited because they lured Matt out to Utah. He's going to come in the house. So while Tracey is putting up this farce, Kate is relating information to Matthew. Tracey, you see her right there at 2:13 p.m., searches the "It's Happening" meme. What's happening? Why is she so excited? And well, again, Tracey is putting up this farce. Rachel is clearing the house. You can see that she calls Jake, she calls Tim, she calls Aurora, she calls them all off. Rachel and Jake live there, so just make sure they're not there. Tim, who was going to come over, hear his testimony, he was told not to come. And then we continue to see phone calls throughout the afternoon being exchanged, some of them missed, some of them connected. But what's most important is that Kate and Tracey continued the ruse of Kate going back to California in those messages to Matt. You heard about preparations, you heard differing reasons for the preparations, but we do agree that the children's toys were cleaned up and placed in another room. You see in the photos that the blanket was placed on the couch right next to where Matt was shot. And also during all these preparations, the family monitored Matt's location. Kate consistently told Matt that she loves him, and she was excited, even though we know she had no intent to leave. Her bags were not packed. She's not leaving on a jet plane. She's not going to get in that car with him. And then at least 3 times in this last phone call at 8:13, Kate confirms, "You're going to come right in, though." That's Exhibit 18. And then Kate sends him the gate code. And then at 10:01 p.m., just minutes before Matt's arrival, Rachel texted Tracey and then Kevin and told them to look at the air tag as Matt passed through Orem. So who's the first person she sent it to? Tracey. Who's the second person she sends it to? Kevin. But who is noticeably absent? Who does she not send it to? Kate. Kate, the one the family is supposedly worried about, the one who has an Android device, and so can only access it through the family or one of her kids' iPads, the one we're supposedly worried about if Matthew is truly dangerous, she's the only one left out of the loop. Now finally, one last point.
You called me.
Skip the wrong way. One last point before we move on. We color-coded this for you. And I'm going to go back to the beginning. And you'll see that Tracey is in red. There it is. Here's the beginning. Tracey's in red. There she is. There she is. There she is. There she is. There she is again. Tracey. Tracey everywhere. More Tracey. She is everywhere because she is everywhere. Tracey is the hub in the middle, and her children are the spokes. She's the mission control. She's orchestrating the entire plot. She agreed with Kate to have Kate, lure Matthew to Utah and come inside the house. She agreed with Kevin to have him lie in wait and shoot. And then she had Rachel get Rory and Jake out of the house and call Tim off and track Matt's location. She had Tara Lynn help her plant a duplicitous story about being happy with Kate going back with Matthew, but also that Matthew might be stewing all day, so be careful. A story that no one should believe at this point. So how do you know she manipulated everyone? Because just look at what she says and then what everyone does. Look at her involvement and look at the result. You know what one of the worst parts of this is? Is that she didn't just deceive Matthew. She deceived some of her own children into doing her bidding without them ever realizing what was truly happening.
You called me?
We're going to move on to the ambush, the phase 3 as I divided this. So at 10:01 p.m., Matthew was in Orem. Within minutes, he arrived at American Fork. Just before 10:06, Matthew entered the gated community. Inside Tracey's home, Kate was upstairs with the children. Tracey waited in the kitchen, and Kevin had put on a holster and Tracey's gun in preparation for Matthew's arrival. You know, there's really no other explanation for why he'd have the gun and holster on. 10 o'clock at night, inside his own home, safe, gated community. The explanation that you should infer is that he intended to use it, and that's why he had it on under those circumstances. And having been called off or sent away, no one else besides the two youngest children asleep upstairs were in the home. At 10:06 p.m., the neighbor's security camera recorded Matt's truck pulling up to Tracey and Kevin's home. It took around 30 seconds to park. The video at least lasts 30 seconds, and you see him at least stopping by the end of it. And then he gets out and goes in. At 10:07 p.m., there's the parked truck. At 10:07 p.m., within mere seconds of his entry, neighbors said they heard the gunshots from the home. Now, when you look and analyze the physical, the forensic, and the medical evidence all together, it shows you what happened. So as shown in this slide, which I already had up, Matthew took over a little 30 seconds to stop. He left his hazard lights on when he got out. He carefully parked over the cardboard, took a few moments, whatever time he needed, and then proceeded inside. He walked to the front door and entered the home as he was told to. Remember, the door is always unlocked. The screen had been removed. And he took off his sandals right inside the front door as a good guest does. And then we can see from the Faro scan that immediately, or within seconds of Matt's entry, Kevin began shooting. Matthew tried to flee down that hallway to the left. That makes sense because the evidence shows Kevin must have been standing to his right based off bullet casings, bullet trajectory, and all the other scene evidence put together, not any one individual thing. Now, unfortunately, Matthew didn't make it far. You can see with the black redacted box where Matthew fell after being shot in the chest, the side, the wrist, and the back 3 times while he moved away from the door towards the hall, landing that 10 or 15 feet from where he left his sandals. Now we're going to come back to that aspect in a moment and where Matthew fell. But for now, just remember what the crime scene expert, he pointed out where Kevin would have been based off the totality of the circumstances. Casings, the bullets, the trajectories, and all that. And from his testimony, you may reasonably infer that this was an ambush. 10:06, you saw it on the video, 30 seconds, more time to get to the door, 10:07 shots fired. There wouldn't have been enough time for Kevin to run around to that garage and get that gun from the safe. There would not have been enough time for Matthew to walk around as it was described in some of the testimony. It was immediate or near immediate ambush. And that's the result. At 10:08 p.m., the neighbors who had heard the shots texted Tracey and asked if they were okay. At 10:09, no response. They called 911. Now, around this time, Kate, who had stayed upstairs with the kids, overheard Kevin say something to the effect to be careful, because he, being Matthew, might still be moving. Interestingly enough, that's one of the few things that Kate said that didn't have some form of independent or external corroboration until Tracey took the witness stand and said the same thing. So at least that part was true from her testimony. Tracey did not call 911 until more than 8 minutes after the shooting, 6 minutes after the neighbor had called. And by that time, police had already been dispatched and arrived 2 minutes into Tracey's call. Notice when they arrived, the lights were still off. No one in this 8 minutes turned on the lights. They were expecting him and didn't have the lights on awaiting him. Like I said, it was a bad cover-up to a bad conspiracy. We'll come back to that. In that 911 call, Tracey described Matt as armed with a knife, even though when she testified yesterday, she couldn't remember seeing the knife. To police who arrived, Kevin's first words were, "That guy had a knife and I voice trailing off." These statements were not true. Matthew was not armed, he was not an intruder. Remember, he was invited. He was expected. He'd been tracked. The cardboard was out. He's given the gate code, specifically told to come in. Walk right in, because Tracey would be asleep. But she wasn't. And he did, to his death. This brings us to the cover-up, the obstruction, perhaps a better way to put that. First, there's the knife. Okay? As known in the 911 call, Tracey said Matthew had a knife. And then when police arrived, Kevin claimed Matthew had the knife. At the police station, Kevin reiterated Matthew had a knife. Tracey said the same thing at her interview at the police station. Hours later to the neighbor, Tracey also said Matthew had a knife. That's the story. A knife, as you can see, was found in Matthew's hand, but that knife was planted. There are numerous pieces of physical and forensic evidence that show this to be the case. Let's start with the photo. Just to start with common sense. Does that look like that knife in these conditions was planted? Or that he'd been holding it all along? Now, as you consider that, consider this evidence. That knife is in the wrong hand. Matthew was left-handed. That knife is in his right hand. Second, the knife is in the wrong position. It's backwards in the wrong hand. So the blade is facing inward, and the spine of the knife is facing the fingers, with the finger grip facing the palm. Can I get that, please? So what I have here is not the actual knife. The actual knife is in that exhibit box. Remember, we showed it to you. You maybe saw the zip ties. So this evidence had DNA testing. You can't touch that. You can see it if you'd like. So we have brought in a demonstrative. This is you could call it a replica if you want. You could call it a facsimile. It's just another copy of that knife. You can see what it is, a tactical knife. You can see back here the spine. You can see right here the finger grip. And you can see how someone would naturally hold this knife if they were going to use it. But you can also see from that photo that that's not how the knife is being held in his hand. It's being held 180 degrees backwards because it was planted in his hand. Consider the blood evidence that was discussed. There was the discussion of the blood pooling and the patterns. To be honest, the photos are somewhat graphic, and I'm not going to show all of them. You have all the ones that were admitted into evidence, and you can review it for yourself. But you can see enough here. There's blood pooling near his shoulder. There's no blood pooling under the arm, where that gunshot wound is. Blood is everywhere else, but where the arm and the wound is. And that tells you that arm had been moved. Then there's the medical evidence. Matthew had been shot through his arm near the wrist. We had a discussion where the gunshot wound perforated the skin, the tissue, the ulna bone, and the flexor muscles. Do you really think Matthew would still be holding that knife after being shot 7 times, 1 time in the wrist, running down that hallway away from Kevin, and falling face first on the ground? And fifth, we know that the knife belonged to Tracey. I've reiterated this, and I'll keep reiterating it. Believe Kate to the extent you can corroborate Kate. Okay? Now, Kate did testify. This is Tracey's knife. She told you where it was hidden in the laundry room. She told you that she saw it beforehand. And how can we corroborate this? Well, we know it's an unusual knife. The detective discussed local stores don't sell this. We saw where Tracey gained access to it. Her friend Amy's husband, Pierre, had passed away, but he'd been getting these tactical mystery boxes from My Tactical Promo. And that Tracey, by being in the home multiple times, taking care of her friend Amy, had access to it. We learned in testimony that Tracey's not above taking things from Amy. We talked about the titles, right? So she had access, and she does that in another circumstance. So you can infer that she did it in this circumstance. And we know from the Facebook posting by mytacticalpromo.com that it is that knife. And then there's the DNA evidence, where, there's a lot you can say about DNA, but what you can say is there's very strong support that the DNA on the knife belonged to Matthew and Kathryn, or Matthew and Kevin, and Matthew or Tracey. Point of that is, you may not know which of the Grist family members planted that knife based solely off the DNA, but you know it wasn't handled only by Matthew. And you know someone in that home put it in there. Okay. You also heard the expert's opinion that it was planted, right? Consider that for what it's worth. But you already know it from your common sense, from these factors that we just went over, that Matthew was not holding that knife when he was shot, and he was not holding that knife until Tracey and Kevin put it in his hands. At this point, I want to review a few of the instructions with you. I'm not going to put these on the slide. You're free to follow along. You have a copy of these. If you want to make notes, you can. You certainly don't have to. And I want to be certain of this, that you follow the exact language in these instructions. I'm just going to walk through a few of them. And we're going to start with inferring intent, right? Tracey left a lot of digital evidence that tells you what her intent is. But you still have to infer a little bit. And you have to infer a little bit about everybody else in the family and what their intent and motivation was. And that's what this instruction tells you can do. You seldom have direct statements, so you use the statements that you have, use the conduct that you have, the circumstances you have, to see what the intent is. And then on instruction 30, we have the party liability, the party to the offense instruction that we went over earlier. And we already discussed this, that Tracey is guilty if she directly did any of these crimes, and Tracey is guilty if she intentionally, knowingly, or recklessly solicited it, requested it, commanded it, or encouraged another person to commit the charged offense, or she intentionally aided another person to commit the charged offense. Okay, so with that in mind, let's look at the actual crimes. Instruction 31 is the murder instruction. Tracey Grist as a party to the offense. Let's just focus in on intentionally or knowingly caused the death of Matthew Restelli. If you want to look at B, you want to look at C, you're certainly free to. There's various theories. You could look at this evidence and decide that it was a depraved indifferent circumstance. But the theory the state has told you today, the theory that the evidence most closely tracks, is that Tracey Marie Grist intentionally or knowingly caused the death of Matthew Restelli by agreeing with Kevin to have it happen, by agreeing with Kate to have it happen, by soliciting or requesting Kevin to do it, or maybe she just encouraged Kevin to do it. Really, the evidence shows she did all three. She certainly aided by aiding in the ruses of Kate, that she gave Kate the pass to Matt, by helping convince Matt to come into the home to be ambushed by Kevin. Then we look at instruction 34, conspiracy. The only one of the charges that is not a party to the offense charge. On this one, a little bit more simple in some ways. Tracey Grist intended that the murder be performed, agreed with one or more persons to engage in conduct or performance of the murder. So you could almost think of it like, loosely, as almost like a Russian nesting doll, right? That she conspired, but that's a lot less of a crime in a certain sense than being a party to the offense, right? She can agree that the murder happens without necessarily doing all the soliciting, all the encouraging, all the aiding, right? She just agrees with them to engage or cause it in any little bit of I should probably rephrase that slightly differently. She agreed and then took a substantial step along the way towards committing it. And the substantial step could be a little bit or far less than the party to the offense soliciting or encouraging or aiding. Then we have the obstruction of justice, back to the party of the offense. And you know, we have this, and it's a little bit lengthy, but I want you to compare that to 36 while we're doing this. So Tracey as a party to the offense, had the intent to hinder, delay, or prevent the investigation, the apprehension or prosecution, conviction, or punishment of any person, regarding conduct constituting a criminal offense, and then did one of these three things: altered, destroyed, concealed, or removed, made or presented or used anything known to be false, or provided false information. 36 makes this easy by putting that in plain language, what that means. What that means is, did she plant the knife, or was she a party to the offense of planting the knife? And or did she make an untruthful statement to 911 or the police about Matthew Restelli having the knife before Kevin Ellis shot him? And then we have instructions 37 and 38. They are substantially the same. They are both the offense of commission of domestic violence in the presence of a child. Count 37 represents Steele being upstairs in the bedroom when Matthew was shot. 38 represents Cheyenne being in the bedroom upstairs while Matthew was shot. And instruction 39 just simply points out that no one is disputing that Matthew and Tracey were cohabitants. One more thing I may want you to look at on the obstruction charge before we move on from the instructions. That is for planting the knife or the lies. And I want you to consider on that one Tracey's conflicting stories about the knife. You can see the evidence for yourself. There's no way she didn't see the knife. But think about the conflicting stories about a related point to the knife. She told Diane that she hadn't checked the pulse. She told 911 that Kevin had checked the pulse. And then her testimony is that she had checked the neck and the wrist twice. There's no way that she leaned down to check the neck or the wrist and didn't see that knife. On the other hand, there's no way that that knife was in that hand until she and Kevin planted it. So members of the jury, we're reaching the end here. Are you firmly convinced that's the standard? Are you firmly convinced that Tracey is the reason for or cause of Matthew's death? Are you firmly convinced that she did one of these things: solicit, request, command, encourage, or aid the murder of Matthew Restelli? I want to end with the words of her co-conspirators. There were three persons involved in this murder: Kate, Tracey, and Kevin. Again, believe Kate, and you can corroborate Kate. She came in, she testified. But bluntly, her testimony didn't go well. She clearly has issues, to put it nicely. But she gave a very specific description about the conspiracy and what was happening. She gave a very specific description of how she even asked Tracey to call it off, and Tracey said no. And you may think there's reasons to discount her because of that credibility instruction. But at the same time, you also have the third person in the conspiracy. And what did the third person in the conspiracy say in the recorded phone call? Kevin said also that this was Tracey's idea. Kevin admits to his involvement. And Kevin says that he tried to go to Tracey and say, "Are you sure this isn't the best idea you're having? You will affect so many lives."
She ruined so many lives, and I'm worried to hurt her feelings.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you something now, a little extra.
What's that?
Oh, I asked if she was sure.
She was sure?
Mm-hmm. Because she was like, tell me anything about all this stuff that happened. And I was like, are you sure this is exactly what would happen? And I'm like, she's scheming and doing all this. And she says yes. And she beat Cheyenne. That was her response. Or he beat Cheyenne.
Oh my God.
I never heard it here. I'm sorry that I wanted to tell you that for so long.
No, I know. I can't even imagine.
And I
That's
feel
so
like
sad.
I still bear so much of the blame too for all this.
And that makes me so mad that she's caused you to have to live with this.
I mean,
Like it's,
I could have done something different. I should have started off, and I should have said no.
yeah. Yeah. But your mom should have never asked you that. You should have never had to have to say no.
The same person who planned this is the same person who baked cookies. It's the same, like,
And that's wild. Like, she's the one who made me my chocolate chip cookies without chocolate chips.
I know.
Yeah.
And blueberry muffin cake for your birthday.
Yeah. But this is what she wanted to do. This is, I mean, she had it, and then there's consequences. She had to.
I just don't think, she just doesn't think far enough ahead. She never has. And I think she just is so used to getting rid of everything, she just,
I literally warned her. I said, this will change so many lives. You won't even know how many lives it's going to change.
oh my God, you said that? That's, wow.
Yes. I said, this is a decision you can't take back. I said that to her.
Wow. Kevin.
Yeah, so there's that.
You were the voice of reason, and we all wish we could have, like, seriously, that's what Rachel and I were talking about, like, the reason she didn't want to tell us is because she didn't want to hear our opinion. But you gave her the opinion that we would have given her. Like, you,
I don't remember exactly what I said, but I know I got it across very eloquently and very efficiently. Of like, this is not the best idea you're having. Like, think about it for a second.
oh my God.
But and then that's why I feel so much blame, because I would step up at that point and be like, you know what, no, I need to take my own advice.
Yeah.
I trusted her.
Whose idea was this? Tracey Grist. Whose ruse was it to get Matthew to come to Utah? Tracey. Who manipulated Kevin into shooting Matthew? Tracey. Who had Rachel clear the house and call Tim off? Tracey. Who had Tara Lynn help her create false texts claiming reconciliation and joy over reunion? Tracey. Whose gun was it? Tracey. Whose knife was it? Tracey. Who knew this would affect so many, many lives? Tracey. Who hated Matthew Restelli? Tracey. Who was warned? Tracey. Who can't take it back? Tracey. So whose crime was this? We ask you to find Tracey Grist guilty of murder for causing the death of Matthew Restelli by encouraging it, soliciting it, requesting it, and aiding it to happen. Guilty of conspiracy for agreeing with Kate and Kevin to end Matthew's life. Guilty of obstruction, for planting the knife and lying to police. And guilty of 2 counts of domestic violence in the presence of a child. For having Matthew killed while his 2 small children were asleep upstairs. Thank you.
That's a lot to digest. It's 2 hours. included words like she's not leaving on a jet plane, as sure as the day goes long. This isn't a joke. This isn't an opportunity to write a novel. This isn't a benefit to come up with great little catchy phrases. This is about a man who came up from California to be with his family, and now he is dead. It is nothing to belittle, take light of. It is a serious matter and a serious allegation, and a serious and devastating loss. When you listen to the phone calls between Kate and Matt on the day, July 12th, they're just happy, you know? Hey, how you doing? I passed the water park. They're just happy. You can tell, at least I can, that he's happy to be getting this over with. What? Of the separation between him and his kids, his babies, and, 3 weeks of probably, in his eyes, hell, even though he had to sort of endure it alone, because his wife took his kids. But there's a lot to this story that the state has produced with their big team of people and their big stuff that they have. That certainly is intimidating to anyone faced with these things. And when you look at all the red in that little figure that was presented to you, the graphing, it's because they produced it. It didn't account for all the other text and all the other stuff. It just, they produced the red. They produced it. They present it. They intimidate with it. Law enforcement intimidates with it to try and prove their case as well. And it's intimidating. It's intimidating what could happen when you enter a plea, what could happen when you resolve a case, when they present you have no choice. Well, today we had a choice. And the choice is to plead not guilty, that I wasn't part of a conspiracy, that there was just a tragic thing that happened. And did it happen? Yeah, it happened. In my opening statements, I said that the state had a narrative, and Kate was required to follow that narrative. And Kate came here and testified about a big plan. And I referred to it as a messy plan. I was mocked for saying that, frankly. This is a crazy plan. This is ridiculous. This is a plan where they had an idea back in January or February to murder Matt because he doesn't want to go to Disneyland, or in May to murder Matt because he said that Tracey told Kate that she used the smoking camper too much, or that Tracey said to Matt, I want the kids to come for the summer California, and he got mad about that. The reality is, and I think the truth is, and that's what you're here to really weigh out, this has been a volatile family regarding Matt and Kate for a long, long time. Not just a year, not just since 2024, but 23, 22, 21, 19, 18, 17. I mean, these have been volatile about the relationship for a long, long time. It was known to all the family members, every single one. Tim referred to himself as a peacemaker or peacekeeper. Why do you have to be one unless there's not peace, right? Do you have a family peacekeeper? I guess we sort of do in my family, but we really don't have this kind of need to keep peace. I'm a grandpa. I got grandkids. I got in-law kids. I love my grandkids. I love them all. It's great. But the truth is, sometimes I need to tread a little lightly with some of the things I say to my kids. Sometimes I need to tread a little lightly with some of the things I say to my in-law kids. Sometimes I need to tread a little lightly with my little guy who's my little grandson, just because I want to make sure we continue to have a good relationship. Because I love them. And I know all of you know that to be true. You just sometimes have to tread lightly. Sometimes, believe it or not, my kids don't follow my advice. No matter how logical I am. And believe me, I think I'm very logical. But they just don't. Because they think they're smarter than me. Or they think they have better knowledge about something than me. Sometimes it's really important. Sometimes it's, hey, you need to maybe treat your wife a little bit better. Yeah, those conversations actually occur in my family. They occur between my wife and me, too. So, it's an ongoing process of trying to get things better. But that doesn't lead to some huge conspiracy about murder when nothing said today talks about the fact that the killer is Kevin. Kevin killed a guy. He shot a guy 7 times. And that officer's testimony, that expert, he talked about how he's trained that you have to unload till the object is not moving. They're trained that because this inclination is not to do that. The inclination is just to shoot. But we never heard anything about Kevin being high on cocaine today. We never heard about Kevin being out of his mind on the impairment of a controlled substance, because that doesn't matter. That's not really a fact. That's not a fact to be considered, I guess. It's a consideration for me, because it makes me think that that guy's not thinking right, that that guy is not thinking properly, that that guy's impaired. Cocaine is a big drug. It's a big drug. Not discussed. Doesn't matter. I'd like to pull out, and I'm not sure where this audio is, and maybe Faye could help, but I'd like the exhibit of Kate at the police station. And the reason I would like to pull up this exhibit is because we know what Kate did in furtherance of this plan. She had it all planned out. Indeed, she had until February to plan it out. She was ready to murder him because of the Disney fight, and she was ready to come up with all these ideas, and she included Rachel in that because Rachel, the poor little girl who got, cross-examined, direct-examined by prosecution there, being basically accused of wanting to shoot Matt too, and Tara Lynn, and all the family knows that the real plan is to kill Matt. And the best plan they have is we're just going to kill Matt. Even though we have all this time to prep for it and all this time to prepare for it, we're just going to kill Matt. Nothing else? Well, I'll tell you, I watch enough shows where I could come up with a plan a little bit better than what we see Tracey provide the police when she goes to the police station. Do we have that up? Do you have that up? Tracey at the police station. Did I say Kate? My client, Tracey at the police station. As you might remember, Tracey was on the front yard. She was talking to law enforcement a little bit. She had her phone in her hand. She testified that she called a police officer. That's probably not true, because everything Tracey says is a lie. Tracey probably didn't call the lawyer, because everything she says is a lie. However, the lawyer appeared when she wasn't allowed to use the phone any further. So maybe it was true what Tracey was saying, right? She did call the lawyer, and the lawyer came. If we can hit play. These are unrefuted facts that you cannot challenge.
My supervisor did tell me just for the meantime, did want us to take your phone just for right now.
They took her phone.
So we'll get it back once we're done. If you need to make a phone call, so we'll give it to you. So, and I know that you had mentioned that you may want to talk to a lawyer friend that you have. So let me just give you your address again. Doesn't mean you're in trouble. Doesn't
We can
mean
pause it
you're
right there. Now this is part of the plan. This is the great plan between Kate and Kevin and Tracey. Right here is part of their plan. You can hit play.
So you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can or will be used against you in the court of law. You have the right to talk to a lawyer and have him or her present while you're being questioned. If you cannot afford to hire a lawyer, one will be appointed to represent you before any questioning if you wish. You can decide at any time to exercise these rights and not answering questions or making statements. Do you understand these rights? Having these rights in mind, do you still want to talk to me? Do you still want to have that lawyer present when you talk to me?
I can talk a little.
Okay, sounds good. So, what exactly were you there for?
It's my house.
It's your house? Your daughter was just visiting, staying for a visit? Okay. Were you planning on staying the night, or?
My daughter?
Mhm.
She lives in California.
Oh, gotcha. So she's visiting from California. Okay. And was she there with her husband? No? Okay.
He's awful.
Mhm.
So she came to hang with me.
Gotcha. And she brought her 2 kids with her?
Yeah.
And they just have those 2 kids? Okay.
There's no paperwork or anything. She just came for a printer.
Gotcha. Did you go pick her up, or did she fly here or drive herself? Or?
She rented a car.
Rented a car. Gotcha. And was that his truck outside of your house?
Yes. I can roll the gears around.
Both of theirs?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, I know when I say
Yeah.
his, hers, yeah, thank you for clarifying that. With both of theirs, but, so what kind of problems were they having? Do you know?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I mean,
We can pause that. I've heard Kate talk about this relationship with Matt. I've seen the video of the wet tortillas. I've heard about Disney. I've heard about the smoke trailer. I've heard about... I couldn't even answer what their relationship is like. So when Tracey is answering that, I would imagine she's thinking, hey man, there's so many things here. They just don't get along. She came up here, they just don't get along. That's what I'm seeing. Maybe it's different. Maybe it's the plan to say they aren't having a problem. And really he just came as a mysterious man at night, had a knife, and we shot him. We can use common sense on that. We can hit play.
I don't know.
And that's okay, if you don't know, right? So,
I mean, I have an idea, but it's so nebulous, so I don't know.
gotcha. Well, sometimes little details for us kind of paint the picture and to whatever that exactly happened, right? So that's why I ask. When did he get here to Utah? Do you know?
I think about a little bit after 10.
A little bit after 10. Okay. And did he call beforehand? Did he text? Did she know he was on
She
his
knew
way?
he was coming,
Okay.
and she was going to talk with him. And I was in the kitchen, and next thing I know, he was in the kitchen. He's like, hey, I'm like, oh, hi.
Do you know if they had a conversation before?
I
Or?
have no idea.
Okay. Kind of walk through me what was happening when you were in the kitchen. He showed up, and then what happened?
I was in the kitchen, and I was sitting on the counter, because I do that, I sit in the corner.
Mm-hmm.
And he said hi, and then he walked into the other room, but he was acting different.
Mm-hmm. What do you mean by he was acting
He was
different?
just, how agitated.
Mm-hmm.
I
What happened after that, after he walked away?
He walked away.
Mm-hmm.
He said, "Is Katie upstairs?" And I said, "Yeah, she'll come down." That's the last I heard gunshots. But I know more gunshots now.
Mm-hmm.
I've never heard a gun really fired, except for something. Gun range.
Okay. And what were you doing when you heard the gunshots?
Just sitting on the counter.
Just in the same spot when you walked in?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what did you do after you heard the gunshots?
I ran into the bottom of the stairs to go check on my daughter. I thought something might happen to my daughter.
Gotcha. And what did you see when you went down the
She
stairs?
was on the ground, laying down, face down.
And then what happened?
I called 911.
Mm-hmm. What was your daughter doing all when you came downstairs?
When I came down to my...
Yeah, when you came
I
down the
went
stairs.
upstairs.
Oh, sorry, my apologies. I misunderstood. Do you know who this is?
This is the family attorney.
Oh, gotcha.
Hey,
We have
talk to
40
Kevin. Talk to Kevin.
Okay.
Kevin. So could you take him to Kevin, please?
Yep.
There you go. Is that the guy that you were talking about?
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. There you go. He's here. Do you want him present?
No.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, when you had, I thought you had said that you went downstairs.
Floor.
Gotcha. So you went upstairs to see her when you heard the gunshots. My apologies, I misunderstood you there.
Everything happened on the main floor.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I went in the hallway, and then I went upstairs, and I just said, "Stay here, don't come downstairs." I don't come downstairs.
And that was to...
My daughter Katie,
Okay.
because I didn't want her to see.
Okay, I'm gonna just, because obviously I was confused somewhere, so I'm just gonna back up a little bit. Kind of run me through you sitting on the counter in your kitchen, hearing the gunshots, and then what happened after that.
I went and looked in the hallway.
Mm-hmm.
Or I went to the bottom of the stairs, and that's the hallway.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what else happened.
So after you went to the bottom of the stairs, then you went upstairs, and
Yeah, and I
With your
told
daughter?
her, she said, "What happened?" I said, "Just here. Just don't come downstairs, please don't come downstairs, please don't come downstairs." I didn't want her downstairs.
and then what happened?
I don't know. I know I called 911.
Mm-hmm.
And they asked if I had CPR, and I was just looking at him on the ground. And then the door opened.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think the neighbor upstairs, Caitlin, heard a noise because she asked me if I was okay. I saw when I went to call, she said, "Is everything okay?" So,
And what's your daughter's name? Sorry, I don't want to keep referring to her as your daughter, Katie. Okay. And you probably mentioned that, but I heard Caitlin, and I didn't want to get confused. Where were Caitlin's kids at when this happened? Sleeping. Okay. And that's on the upstairs level? Where was Kevin at when this was going on? Well, thank you for kind of letting me know on your side of things what was going on. So I'll step out, and if we have more questions for you, I'll let you know. Okay. Okay. Thanks.
It's 11:42 that night, shooting taking place 10 after 10, something like that. If we can play the next video.
Thanks. Sure. You can have that seat. Okay, Tracy. I just wanted to kind of give you some time to kind of think. I know you were saying a lot of I don't knows and stuff like that, but is anything else kind of come to your mind right now? No? Not at all? Okay.
I am so in shock. Like do his parents know? Did someone call his parents?
I assume someone has at this point. I've only been here with you, to be honest, so all that information I don't even know myself. The only information I know is kind of what you've told me, and that's about it. So.
Or is Katie here too?
I believe she is, and with her kids came with her, yeah, so they're not alone by
Where's
themselves.
Rory?
We're at Rachel's house.
In Ogden?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
I don't even know. Is that
That's
another
another
kid?
kid.
Rory's
Sure.
my daughter,
Yeah,
Rachel's
just
my
down
other
there.
daughter.
Gotcha. Okay. So just to be like candid, I kind of feel like you do know a little bit more than you're letting on.
Nope.
Okay.
It was, he appeared
And
when I
I
was in the kitchen. And
I guess
did
I'm
that.
more talking about with kind of stuff with Kevin.
With Kevin?
Mhm.
Nope.
Not at all.
No idea where he was. No.
Okay. Okay. Well, again, honesty it's the best policy.
I'm telling you.
you.
I almost know nothing.
Okay.
She schools me on being honest.
Well, good. We always need someone looking after each other, right? To be honest and forthright, right? So, and again, that's just
And
kind of
I've
the vibe that I'm getting. So.
And I've told her
Mhm.
that the most important thing is to be honest and truthful, and we can decline to answer if we want to, and she will do that, but she's not, so far as I know, withholding anything.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I just wanted to come in here and see if you did remember me, because again, like I said, I know you were saying like a lot of I don't knows, and so I just wanted to see if you remembered anything else and talk you with a little bit, but nothing comes to mind at all.
I interacted with Matt for like maybe 3 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't see Kevin. And Matt went around the corner, and by the time I got, I don't even know, I didn't see anything. All I heard was noise.
What were the noises that you were hearing?
The shots.
That was the only
Yeah.
noises. There's no conversation, no confrontation at all.
Not that I heard.
Okay. Gotcha.
Have you been to the house? Do you know the layout?
I haven't, so
This is the plan. 3 months in the making. This is the plan. For Tracy to say, he came in the house, said, "Where's Kate?" And then I don't hear anything, no confrontation, no arguing, and then gunshots. That's the plan. That's ridiculous. If you have a plan, you're gonna have some kind of plan, aren't you? I mean, just previous, it's now 1:47 in the morning on this video. Kevin had already said he had a knife and I shot him. My client said there's not even an argument. I heard nothing like that. Just where is she? And so we can pull that down. And so now we have to go into the delving of other things that the state is presenting, the government is presenting to be these reasons, sort of like leaving on a jet plane. We're just going to pull it out from other lyrics and come up with ideas. Like number one, the reason that we're coming to have Matt murdered is because of this terrible custody fight. Well, there was no custody fight. The only thing about custody in this whole case is a telephone conversation that Kate had with a lawyer who said, hey, if you're in California and then you go to another state, he can file some paperwork to have you come back if you don't agree on it. And then proceed forward in a divorce case. Tracey has been divorced 4 times, has custody, has shared time. The kids have said, I saw my dad every other weekend. The sisters didn't come as much, but I did with my brother. That sounds like something I hear all over the place. But because of some big custody fight, there wasn't a custody fight. There was going to be. Let's not confuse ourselves, right? There's going to be a custody fight. I don't think they're going to last in this marriage, to be honest. If Kate and him drove back to California, maybe they'd give it a try. But I honestly think, personally me, her substance use, smoking weed all the time, being high all the time, Matt's trying to get off alcohol and Buddy's alcohol problem, they're just such a volatile relationship. I just don't see it lasting if this horrible experience didn't happen. Just don't see it lasting. I see obviously a divorce coming on the horizon. I also think that's the reason they have a storage unit, that she had stuff that she left in California, knowing that at one point California is going to have to be a home plate somewhere in relation to the divorce of the kids. So some ruse of this being a big custody fight, it's not a big custody fight. Frankly, we all know where most kids go in custody fights anyway, don't we? Goes with mom. Dads get the weekends and holidays. Matt's not working. Mom's working for an Airbnb sort of as a side hustle job. But the divorce just isn't a custody fight. It's the preliminary. You know what you have when you do a divorce? You have a conversation to talk about the stuff and the kids. That's what you do. The real estate, the TVs if you care, the DVRs if you care, and anything of value if you care. And then the personal things. You always talk about those. Because there are some things that are personal, you know. My mom's ring and my dad's ring and those things. But the big plan, this is it. My client is referred to as the hub, right? And the kids are the spokes. And she's the conspirator trying to get all of them to be included. I don't think that's what you heard at all. We heard in the closing that they had time to stage the scene. Well, that's a pretty terrible staging of the scene to say that no one's arguing, no one's fighting, and all we have is gunshots. And the question was the final straw in the battle between Mom and Matt, Mom being Tracey. They had a Disney battle because Matt, and the exhibit's there for you to see, Matt was going to decline the Disney trip, and because he declined the Disney trip, the 2 little kids aren't coming either. Well, guess what? They went to Disney. And they had a fun time. And it was a good time. Oh, there was an incident that Tara Lynn saw where Matt was abusive towards his kids. But over the time of the Disney, everyone had testified it was good. Everyone got along. Now, before that, Matt was very angry at Tracey. And he didn't want to go to Disneyland. And then later, in May, Matt and Tracey got into it again. As Tracey testifies, she testifies that I talked to Matt about coming to Utah with Kate and the kids. Matt did not like that idea. We needed the money to stay in California. Kate needed to work. I guess Matt was trying to work. I don't know. Just seemed like that volatile relationship, right? And then the text, where Kate says, hey, Matt said it's okay if you come here. So the scenario of that is all pretty simple. Tracey had a friend, Amy, whose husband died. She was an invalid in a lot of ways. All of her kids knew this person. She'd known him for 38 years. Tara Lynn had been there. Kate had been there. People had been there to Amy's house. And my client flew in. On the way to flying in, and you look at the text, look at the times. I'm getting on the plane early in the morning. A little bit later, after she said, I'm getting on the plane, Kate texts, Matt said it's okay, you can come over to the house. And my client spent the night at the house. So this, once again, plan of, Disney, she wants to kill him and strangle him, and then in April or May, she goes and spends the night at the house. And spends time with Matt. This relationship, torn apart a little bit, patched up a little bit, sounds like family, doesn't it? And it happens. It doesn't resort to a murder. But it happens. And so Matt said, yeah, come to the house. And so she did. She spent time at the house. Then had the conversation with him. And then he accused Kate. Let me get this right. He was mad because there was a conversation about Kate spending too much time in the smoke truck, in the smoke camp. And Tracey says, he's lying. That's not what I talked to him about. I talked to him about going to Utah, which is probably not what Matt wanted Kate to hear. So I had to give a reason why he's ticked off at Tracey. But is that surprising? I mean, if you think about Rachel had said, we'd always had a confrontational family life between Matt and Kate and us. Tara Lynn, the same thing. We've always had a confrontational family life with Matt and Kate and us. Even Tim, I had to be the peacemaker because Matt and Kate and us. It's a common theme. Everyone knew. It was just a hard marriage. And that video that we showed of those two just battling about the stupidest thing. It was very normal for them. And the whole family knew. But they got over it. Indeed, they got over it enough that they're going to go to Las Vegas, Matt and Kate, go with Diane, Matt's mom, and spend some time in Vegas, but then that got canceled. And it got canceled because they just weren't getting along. And Diane probably just didn't want to be around that volatile relationship. And frankly, it seemed obvious Kate was ready to call it. Kate was ready to go. Shortly thereafter, Kate did go. And that was a big plan. It was a big plan. It was a plan to go and murder him. No, it wasn't. It was a plan for Kate to go and talk about, how am I going to get this divorce thing figured out? Indeed, in June, after Kate got there, you saw a text today where my client sent to Tara, can you talk to her about talking to a lawyer? I think the day was June 29th. He's talked to her about talking to a lawyer and what she should say to a lawyer. I think the reality is, I'm not going to trust Tracey to have much conversation with the lawyer, to be honest. She smokes weed, she's high all the time, she's volatile, she's all over the place. You saw her in the stand. Tara Lynn seems to have a much more demeanor about herself to be able to handle a good conversation. So is it uncommon when these guys talk every day anyway to say, hey, you talk to her about having a lawyer? Yet that gets construed so that the narrative of the prosecution can imply that this is a big plan. So you can follow that narrative to make sure the narrative is followed. And the narrative is followed so much to the point that it becomes unbearable. Unbearable for Kate. She realizes with all of this narrative and all of these things whacked into a big web where all these colors are pointing to her. You can just imagine when it's pointing to Kate, all the colors in this spreadsheet are all red. Look, Kate, you. Look, Kate, you. Look, Kate, you. You're red, you're red, you're red, you're red. Look what you did. And Kate needed to make a deal because she was afraid of this big environment coming after her. With all of these prosecutors and all of their... equipment at their disposal. Sometimes it just gets overwhelming and you need to cut your loss. And Kate did. I had a blow-up moment in this trial where I couldn't believe Kate was saying the amount of sentencing time she was saying. If we can pull up the matrix, which I think is defense exhibit number 2. Is that the matrix? Three. So I lost my stuff for a minute, and I had to ask for a break, and I had to leave the room. I had to go get my stuff so that I could really, honestly, help Kate be honest. Because at the bottom of this box, it shows 108 months. If you could show the bottom of that box. For her life, she wouldn't agree to that. No, it's not 108 months. It's for life. No. If you look on the left side, aggravated murder, 300 months, category 1. Then first degree murder, 240 months. We all know what Kate was charged with. She was charged with first degree murder, and she ended with a deal of second degree death, second degree murder. 10 years off of her sentence. But there was a caveat. And the caveat for her to get 10 years, because Kate's 40, for her to get 10 years, is she had to tell the truth to the prosecution. That was a caveat. She had to tell them their story. And so as part of that, she came up with her proffer of evidence letter. And that's an exhibit too. In that proffer of evidence, she talks about never talked to Kevin, never did this, never did that, but yet we had a plan. It was just nonsense. Indeed, not only did she have to have a proffer, which her attorney provided for her, but she also had to give an interview. And when she gave the interview, it didn't go well. And the reason it didn't go well is because police told her, you need to be honest. And I asked her that. But you had to do something with the plan for him to come to the house. Right. So you knew that, correct? Yes. I want to hear it. Yes. Boy. I made sure he would come inside the house. Yes. Was that part of the plan? Yes. So even in an interview where she's there to tell the truth and give justice for Matt and give justice for her kids, the officer says, I want to hear it. Well, why do you want to hear it if she's saying it? It's because she's making up whatever plan you're telling her to make up. And she'll agree with it. Because she wants the 108 months. She doesn't want the 240 months. She's willing to do that. It's unrefuted. Unrefuted evidence that she said that the officer said that. I want to hear it. And then, of course, at the end, it said, the plan isn't on, right? It's the officer. And she says, I feel like it was 50-50. She was just willing to say what she needed to say. She felt overwhelmed by what was presented against her. By a team of lawyers, by a team of law enforcement, by texts. She was overwhelmed with it. And she had to take the deal. She wanted to get out and live. And she wanted the 108 months. Well, she declined it for a time. Until we took the break, and then I came back and I said, didn't you say that you were getting this deal for 108 months? And then she talked about, well, I'm in prison now and things are different now. These jury instructions don't get printed and figured out overnight. These jury instructions I've seen many, many times in my career because they're sort of standard. They're standard in a lot of ways according to the case. Some are case specific, like what is the charge. But most of these instructions are over years and decades and centuries of instructions to juries to get refined to what we have before us here. Some of these instructions I would ask that you look at with close attention. Instruction number 10 is the reasonable doubt instruction. And just for a very quick, I know time's going on, very quick evidence. Evidence has to be decided based on a certain standard. And there's many different standards depending on what kind of case you have. A lot of people don't really realize this, but being a lawyer, I've been trained and I went to school and I figured it out. In criminal cases, it is required that the evidence be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. In America, with TVs, we've heard of that many, many times. But there are many cases that do not require proof beyond a reasonable doubt. But in criminal cases, we want the highest level of proof possible to ensure justice is served. Because if we don't get it right as a community, as a people, the harm of getting that wrong is extreme. But there are other evidences. And so going down the tier is usually, you have to have clear and convincing evidence if you want to have your kids be, or not have, but if the state wants to have the kids be taken away in shelter and provided foster care for some time. You don't need beyond a reasonable doubt, but you need clear and convincing evidence. And then if you get in a car accident, you break your leg, and you want to sue the guy for driving inappropriately, you have to prove by preponderance of the evidence. And preponderance is sort of like a little bit more than 50%, you know. Just need to prove your case better than they prove their case. And then if you want, if you have some other law enforcement things like a search warrants or things like that, you need probable cause. It's less than preponderance, it's less than clear and convincing, and it's all less than the highest standard of beyond a reasonable doubt. In this, it says, the second sentence, it says, there are very few things in the world that we know with absolute certainty. I always wonder about that. You know, I know the lights are on. I know my car's out there. But this instruction says we know very little things, very few things with certainty. Okay. In a criminal case, the law does not require proof that overcomes every possible doubt. Then at the very end it says, on the other hand, instruction 10, if there is a real possibility that she is not guilty, you must give the defendant the benefit of the doubt. And that's reasonable doubt. That's beyond a reasonable doubt. If there is a possibility, that benefit must go to the defendant. Instruction 8 is about witness credibility. Witness credibility is a very common witness instruction or jury instruction that most people I talk to are not aware of this, but in summary, it says this: you as a jury are to decide a witness's credibility, whether they are believable or not believable. It's not our job, it's not the judge's job, it's not anyone's job but you, and that's your job as you go and deliberate as a jury. In this instruction, it does say that if you find that someone has lied, and this is the second last paragraph, you may believe part and disbelieve the rest. You may believe nothing they're saying if you think they have lied. In other words, you may believe all, part, or none of a witness's testimony. And I know a lot of this case is involving Kate, because she's a co-conspirator, according to the state. I think the testimony of Kate was so full of lies, it discredits all of her testimony. And I'll give my reason for that on one very simple question I asked. Did you love Matt? She couldn't even say yes to that, even in the beginning of the relationship, because she was planting in her mind she needed to hold that 108 months. She needed to support the state's position. She couldn't even answer a simple, then why are you dating the guy if you don't love him? Why are you having a baby with the guy if you don't love him? I'm not talking about during June and July of 2024, and I'm specific. Did you ever, and she could never just say, I love Matt. Of course she loved Matt at one time. They spent years and years together. Volatile at times, I get. But there's just a time when it's what we call the softball, you know. I'm gonna throw you a softball pitch so you can hit a home run. Even the softball she couldn't hit out of the park. She's just so filled with the need to support her position because of all the things that were built up against her. And she did not want to mess that up. She had to make sure. And in the end of her testimony, she basically lied about almost everything. Almost everything. And I asked her time after time after time, isn't it true that you said this? And isn't it true that you said that? And time after time, she would disagree. And then time after time, she just started to say, I lied about that. I lied about that. So at the beginning of your testimony, you say, I'm going to meet with the law enforcement and the prosecutor to be truthful. And then at the end of your testimony, you're saying, yeah, I'm lying about the whole thing. On the other hand, there are some things that are irrefutable. My client spoke to police the night of the event. Irrefutable. You can't dispute it. Unless someone wants to say that was AI who developed it. No one's going to say that. She did. She voluntarily. You have the right to remain silent. Do you want to remain silent? No. Do you have a right to have a lawyer? Do you want to have a lawyer? No, I don't care. Send the lawyer to Kevin. What do you know? What do you remember? She's trying her best to know and remember. And she says, I didn't hear anything. I mean, after he spoke to me, I didn't hear anything. In her testimony here, we had her testimony. She said, I expected Kate to come down when he got here. Now, one thing that some of these texts and exhibits that you saw in the closing was all this communication day of, and how they're finalizing their great plan of murder. But we all know that Tracey wasn't in American Fork. Indeed, Tracey was in Salt Lake at work when she got a text saying he's coming to Utah. It didn't say, we need to get ready. It didn't say anything like that. It just says, he's coming to Utah. Do you know why that was an important thing? Because no one thought he was coming to Utah before that. Everyone thought there was a different idea. A car rental, I'll fake an injury so I don't have to come. I can't do the car rental. He's not going to come to Utah in the truck. His neighbor's not going to give him a car to do it. He doesn't even have a license on his truck to come to Utah. But the way it's presented and slighted is just not common sense. The truth is that no one thought he was going to come to Utah until he finally says, I'm coming to Utah. Should I come with the starter busted, or should I get the starter? Should I put a new starter in? Do you remember that part in the phone call? He said, I have the starter. The starter should be good and take me time. And so he doesn't leave California until like noontime. And he has to drive from Temecula all the way to American Fork, beginning at noon. I mean, it can be done, and it was done, right? He did it. I've almost done that. You know, it can be done, but man, I usually want to leave earlier in the day. He had nothing going on. I guess he had to take care of the dogs or take care of the truck or those things, but there was no plan for him to come to Utah. There's no plan for him to come to Utah and let's murder him today. Although, in the closing, we hear about it all being a huge plan. There is no plan. The plan was simple. Kate, you need to get off your ideas and just figure out what you're going to do with Matt. Because you're in my master bedroom, you're taking your space away from me, you need to have some finalization. Love ya. But there has to be something done. Because it's not working the way it's working. That's reasonable. Witness credibility. I always like to say closing arguments because I just want you to know that everything I say is not evidence. It's just argument. Even though it might sound like evidence, it's not. It's just argument. And the prosecutors, it's just argument as well. My client chose to testify. She chose to tell you what she wanted to. She didn't have to. She could invoke her Fifth Amendment right and not say anything. And I could have said, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, my client chose not to testify. However, she did testify. She testified when she spoke to those police officers. And here's what she will say about that. Could have always done that. But she wanted to tell you the truth. She wanted to tell you, I have a confrontational relationship with Matt. But sometimes it's not. I love my kids, and Matt's part of the family. We all got a t-shirt. And the truth is that we do have confrontations. And the truth is, yeah, I said, I want to strangle him. He's going to cancel the Disney trip. And then I want to kill him for lying about saying that I'm mad about her being in the pot house or the pot camp or whatever it's called. She said, I never said that. I said to him that, hey, be good if Kate came to Utah in the summer and spent some time with the grandkids and the other cousins, which he did not like. I could go on and on about the lies that Kate provided in not only her testimony with us, but also her testimony in the other case and also her interview testimony with the officers on June 16th. I could go on and on about that. But I think that's very clear that her just testimony was filled with fear, non-truth, defeated her own alleged purpose for coming forward of truth and justice, and really falls in the face of fear that she's going to spend a lot more time in prison. Instruction 13 is mental state. In the third paragraph it says, for each offense the law defines what kind of mental state, intentional and knowingly. And in this case, that's required as well. Sorry. In instruction 28, it's titled Mental States Defined. And this gives really some good instruction. A person acts intentionally when they engage in certain conduct or causes a certain result. Well, I know someone who engaged in certain conduct, and it was Kevin Ellis. Kevin Ellis grabbed a gun and he shot an unarmed man that he said had a knife. And he shot him 7 times. And it caused the result of his death. A person acts knowingly if he is aware of the conduct, aware of the particular surroundings, aware that the conduct is reasonably certain to cause a result. My client testified, to be truthful to you, that she was not aware of that conduct, that she was not aware Kevin was intending to get a gun and kill Matt. Indeed, she was hoping that Kate would be coming down soon to greet Matt because she wasn't exactly sure when he was getting there, but he's going to be there soon. And the inference of that intent. And the elements of the crime are then provided in instructions. Instruction 31. This is the instruction of the elements of murder. That Tracey intentionally and knowingly caused the death of Matt Restelli. It is surprising to me in this case how people are minimizing the actions of Kevin Ellis. He shot a man. He was high on cocaine. He made lies. And it seems to be minimized in this. In fact, I'll get to that in a minute. Instruction 34 is conspiracy. Conspiracy is if Tracey Grist intended that conduct constituting the crime of murder be performed and agreed with one or more persons to engage in the cause of performance of the conduct. The state would have you believe that this is a long-time plan. This is a long-time plan for certain decided well before July 12th, well before July 11th, and that the whole plan on Kate coming to Utah was to murder Matt. That is not what the unrefuted facts show. Indeed, if that were, this is the messiest murder I can think of, murder plan, where my client says, no, he didn't have anything. I didn't even hear a fight. When I saw him, he didn't have a knife in his hand. When I saw him later when he was dead, I did. But when he said, hey, I didn't see a knife in his hand. Why would she say that? Why don't you just say, yeah, he came in agitated, had a knife in his hand, he threatened me. Well, the word agitated is a little interesting. I just drove 10 hours, and I pull up to the front yard, and my wife's there with my kids who I haven't seen in 3 weeks, and she ain't there to greet me. The heck. I'd probably be agitated if I walked into, like, well, Kate, I mean, you know I'm here. So for my client just to volunteer, just off the cuff, he seemed agitated. Didn't say angry, mad, just seemed off. She did say he didn't have a knife. Did not have a knife. That's because she's helping the plan, helping the conspiracy. And the obstruction. The obstruction that she planted the knife. Her testimony is when I first saw the body, I looked at it, I don't remember what its real visual was. I went upstairs, I knew Kevin had shot him. Kevin said he had a knife. Went upstairs and said, Kate, don't come down, don't come down. Came downstairs, had to find my phone, called 911. There's a confusion about 911, frankly, because they used the name Caitlin, and are you Caitlin, or something like that. And my client was confused on the 911 call, because there's Katie and there's Caitlin, and Caitlin had already called. It is confusing. But on the obstruction that she planted the knife or lied to the 911 call. Her testimony was, Kevin said he had a knife. She didn't say, he had a knife, Kevin. No, she said he didn't have a knife. And then when she went over to where the body was, Kevin said, he had a knife. And she's relaying that to 911. That all of a sudden comes up to another charge the state can charge against you, right? Well, there's another one. Obstruction. There's another one. Unless you follow our guidelines of a plea. Unless you agree to plead to murder, conspiracy, and discharge of a firearm for Kate. On the elements of murder, that you intentionally and knowingly caused the death of Matthew Restelli. And there is someone who did that. It's Kevin. And there's an audio between Kevin and Tara Lynn. And he says, I have something I need to tell you. I talked to her. And Tara Lynn is just, oh wow, that's so hard. That's so hard on you. I don't know about you guys, but murder is the last thing in my mind. If I'm mad at someone, that's the last thing in my mind. And I don't know that I'm saying to a person who's been in jail for like almost 2 years, that's so hard for you. I think more the question I'd be saying is, why'd you shoot him 7 times? What happened? None of that was talked about in that tape. I had the gun, he had the knife, he came at me. None of that. I was on cocaine. She doesn't even say to him, you use cocaine? When did he start using cocaine? None of that conversation was talked about. She said on the stand, I didn't know he used cocaine. Rachel said on the stand, I didn't know he used cocaine. Tracey got on saying, I didn't know he used cocaine. No one knew he used cocaine. They're all very surprised. Kate said, I didn't know he used cocaine. I know he didn't like weed. None of that kind of conversation took place between Terrell and him, but he was offering this information to her. And I suppose that he's offering this information to her for one reason. And it's something I know because I'm in this world of the criminal justice system. And that is, jail is hard. When you go to jail, you have one thing, and that is called time. You are doing time all day. When you sleep, you get to sleep. And when you wake up, you're doing time. And you have these little respites while you're serving your time to have phone calls. They're all recorded. Sometimes you get letters, but it's mainly phone calls. And as you have these phone calls, you can establish relationships with people and confirm relationships with people and reestablish and make sure those relationships are positive, because frankly, those are the only positive relationships you have in prison and jail. The relationships in jail and prison are scary. It's a scary place. It's where hard people live. And to establish those relationships and to try and garner some good relationships that you can do with one another on the phone is hugely valuable. And Kevin wanted to provide his sister a continuation of that relationship so that she'd take his calls, that she'd be available, so that she can just talk to him, so that he can have a reprieve from the jail and prison where he is. Because it's hard. I'm not saying it's not supposed to be hard, because it is supposed to be hard. But the truth is, it is hard. And it's hard because that's what you want. You want to lock people up so they don't have the opportunities to hurt. But he never accepts real responsibility except, I should have said no. I should have this. I should have that. And then Tara Lynn says, that's so wild while you gave an opinion. I should have given Mom that opinion. With Rachel, we would have given our opinion. And I'm listening to this thinking, what are you talking about? An opinion about a plan to kill someone? Is that how you're talking to this guy? I mean, come on. If I'm having that conversation with anyone, whether it's my firstborn or my neighbor 16 blocks away, I'm not saying those kind of things about the idea of murder. I could have had a different opinion. A different opinion? She felt sorry for him. She felt sorry that he was convicted. She felt sorry that he's going through his hard time. Because he is. Because he killed a man. Because he killed a man while he was high on cocaine. Because that's what happened. There's plenty of talk of harm. I'm going to strangle him. I'm going to kill him. I'm mad at him. Got my tortillas wet. There's plenty of talk about harm and anger and volatility. But there's no plan to kill Matt. The plan for Matt was to come and have a conversation with Kate, and she is intimidated by the whole process because her name on their spreadsheets was red, 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 red. You're going to do a lifer. And you know what? We'll give you 108. And you've already done 2. No, that's wrong. 108 months, you've already done 2 years. We'll give you that. But you need to give us what the plan is. And what she said, as a 50-50. That certainly doesn't seem like a plan to me. That seems like you just don't know until a dude on coke decides to grab a gun and kill a man. I would ask that you find Tracey Grist not guilty. The state has not proven this case. What they've done is they've created a huge web to try and create a narrative that they got some people to follow. It's just not what is the truth.
Thank you, Mr. Finstar. Can I see you and Mr. Pomeroy up here for a minute, please? All right, ladies and gentlemen, I know we've been going 3 hours. Mr. Pomeroy just confirmed to me he's going to be under 10 minutes, and then we'll do our recess and we'll start the deliberations. We will have, is it here yet? We are ordering in lunch for you, so we will have food for you. Mr. Pomeroy, rebuttal?
Yes, Your Honor, we're just putting up one exhibit and I'll be ready.
Thank you.
You plugged in? Make it full screen. That works. That works. Thank you. So this is Matthew Restelli. It's pretty obvious what he's doing in this photo. It's a wedding photo. This was Matthew at one of his best times in his life. Matthew was a husband, father to 3 children, son to Diane. Unfortunately, in this trial, you also saw Matthew at his worst. But what Matthew was at his worst is what earned him the nickname Olaf. The talkative, friendly, yet obnoxious snowman from a Disney movie. No one feared Matthew, not really. They made fun of him. They didn't fear him enough to be that worried when he was coming up. None of the family who wasn't in the home and part of the conspiracy thought to call the police. No one checked up on him after he got there for a long time. So why is it that Matthew Restelli ended up dead? Reasonable doubt is the standard you have to apply to answer that question. Thing about reasonable doubt, it's not imaginary doubt. You can't just say a whole bunch of stuff and distract from the evidence. You have to base it in the evidence. If you have doubt, it must be grounded in that evidence. But when you look at that evidence, you don't see reasonable doubt here. There's a lot talked about the plan. See, never said it was a long-term plan. There was a lot of stuff that built up to that pivotal moment when there was a plan. There was a lot of bad blood, so to speak, that built up until Kevin was willing to shoot Matthew. A lot of bad blood that built up, things that happened until Tracey had had enough of that annoyance she called her son-in-law. It was called the messy plan. Quite frankly, looked pretty good. Utah, shoot, intruder. He had a knife. No one was home. Problem was the neighbor who called 911 too soon. Everything went haywire after that, and the plan fell apart. Not for that, we might not be sitting here today. So when we call it a messy plan, it doesn't mean it wasn't a plan. When we call it a failed plan, in the cover-up sense, it doesn't mean it wasn't a plan. And it doesn't even mean that we're saying that the entire family knew about this plan. That's not at all what we've said in this case. What we've said is that everything that got shared in the family was shared among the entire family, and that Tracey knows what to say to get the reaction she wants from her children. And that's what happened here. Without Tracey, this doesn't happen. Without Tracey, Kate didn't lure Matt to Utah. Without Tracey, Kevin did not lie in wait. Without Tracey, Tim would have been there to keep the peace. Without Tracey, Rory and Jake would have been home. Without Tracey, there would have been no gun. Without Tracey, there would have been no knife. without Tracey, Matthew Restelli is alive. And to acknowledge this does not minimize Kevin or Kate's involvement in any way. You know, you want to talk about the cocaine? Fine, we can talk about the cocaine. Isn't it a reasonable inference that Kevin did cocaine so he had the nerves to do what his mother asked him? There's a jury instruction that hasn't been looked at too much. Instruction 24. There has been evidence to suggest that persons other than the defendant may have been involved in the crime for which the defendant is on trial. Your duty in this case is to decide only whether the prosecution has proven beyond a reasonable doubt the guilt of the defendant who is on trial. Kate pled guilty. Kevin was convicted. Your only duty to ask Tracey was tied to this murder. And Tracey was tied to this murder. The plan went to hell. The plan didn't work. And Kevin was mad at her. Exhibit 131. Please tell Kevin that if he is mad at me and doesn't want to talk to me, he doesn't have to. I'm mad at me too. The defense said this is a case about a man who came to be with his family. There's truth in that. This case is also about control. Tracey's control over her daughter, Kate. Tracey's control over her son, Kevin. And Tracey's control over her entire family. And ultimately, her control over whether Matthew Restelli lived or died. The evidence in this case shows how she used that control. The law in this case tells you what that means. And your verdict should reflect both. Thank you.